Thank you for showing up.
Mm.
Can you hear me?
It said you were recording. Oh, are you there?
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
mind if
I
I
can
do?
hear you now. That's totally fine. I lost you for a second, but I can hear you again.
Yeah, sure. Do you mind if I record?
Not at all.
Okay, so I'm just recording so that I can put it up on YouTube so that more people can see it. You don't mind?
Okay.
Yeah. So how was your trip back home?
Oh, very long, but we made it. So happy to be home, but definitely miss the continent already.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna do a brief introduction to our viewers who are gonna see this later, of course, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone. I am so excited today. We have an exciting guest, Mrs. Aimee Besa. She is an allied healthcare practitioner, particularly nursing. Am I correct? If I'm not wrong. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
So she's going to talk to us today about careers in the field of allied healthcare and some of the nitty-gritties that we may want to know about that. So I'm going to give you the platform to share with us, and then of course, once she's done sharing, I'm going to ask a few questions that I think might be able to help us out. So, Amy, welcome. Feel free to take us through this journey that you've also gone through and inspire us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really happy to have been invited to come and talk with you today. So thank you. So my professional career started way back when I was just getting out of high school, and I've always been interested in healthcare. I think I'm a helper by nature, so it was a natural fit. And I didn't take a traditional path whereby I didn't go straight into university. I had a child when I was pretty young, so it definitely changed my trajectory. But I was lucky enough to have access to what we call here in the United States community colleges, which make it a little bit easier and more affordable to get education. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I just, like I said, knew that I wanted to be in healthcare in some capacity. So I took a course to be a certified nursing assistant, which is definitely under that allied health umbrella. My intent with that was to help me make a decision. I really kind of had decision paralysis in terms of what direction to go with my education. Um, and that job it definitely delivered that for me. I had access to be inside a very large and busy hospital setting. I was able to, observe the work of the doctors. I was able to observe the work of the different allied health practitioners. Physical therapists, respiratory therapists. I was able to see what it's like to work in an operating room. I was able to see like the emergency department. I had a lot of exposure to different careers in healthcare. And I used that opportunity to also make connections with people that I really saw as experts in their own professions. So, really, taking opportunities to let some of the doctors know that I was interested in maybe becoming a doctor. And would it be okay for me to observe, anything that they felt would be helpful for me, or could they share with me anything that would be helpful for me to make a decision? So in doing that, I was able to, get invited to watch procedures that were pretty intense. And I also had some really great conversations. So, my intent is never to talk anybody in or out of anything. But I remember one of the doctors saying to me, I really wanted to be a trauma surgeon. I mean, I had this desire to like be a hero and help people, and I just wanted to be right there in the trenches in, people's most strenuous times and be able to help. And he 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 shared with me, you'll get all that if that's what you're looking for, but you have to understand the cost. And the cost was really that it's not only a lot of education, which is very doable, but a lot of having to prioritize work over family. And so I was grateful that he shared that with me because my family is really important to me, and being with my family is important to me. So, I use that information to help me make a decision to not pursue that career, but it doesn't mean that that's what the change. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can, but I can't hear you. Just a moment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My Can you talk? Sorry. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you. Okay, great. Thank
Yeah.
you. Sorry, my headphones died.
Yeah.
So,
It's okay.
so again, like in that, that I really was able to get exposure and have really crucial conversations with a lot of different people. Um, that was really when I decided that I wanted to become a nurse. I didn't want the pressure of, what being a doctor meant, for myself personally, my own mental health. I just didn't think I could handle that, having to make these decisions in a flash. And being a nurse, you're right there in the middle of it all too. You really have to have acute assessment skills. You have to be detail oriented and focused. But what I also learned about nursing was that you can really explore a lot of different areas of nursing without getting a different degree or going back to school. And that was something that was very appealing to me as well. Being a physician, I would have to really hone in on what I wanted to specialize in. But I'm the kind of person where, I do like to have some variety. I like to just be like, I feel like I've mastered this. I'd like to maybe try something different. And so at that time I did go to nursing school and have been practicing nursing now for over 20 years. And in the field of nursing, I have done a very like acute care hospital setting in like emergency and urgent type settings. I've done clinic work in like community health and clinics. I've done community health residential type of nursing. I've done research nursing. I've done procedural nursing. So I've really been able to live that dream that I had, which was to be in healthcare, but also have some variety and really just a lot of versatility in my practices. So that's my story. And I've also had the privilege for the last about 10 years to be a nurse administrator. And what that means is that I'm still a nurse. I have an active degree, but I'm working in more of an administrative role, which means I'm overseeing other people that are providing care to people. And so that's also been a very interesting kind of switch to my career.
Yeah. Thank you for that. But it's very interesting. Being a caregiver, being a nurse, you get to really like interact with people in those moments when they are really vulnerable, and sometimes it's not a pretty scene. It's not all that most times. So how important is your work, and how do you sort of cope with that to treat people who are in these positions with respect? Because like you said when you came and shared with us, it's also really important how you interact with these people, because whilst you are taking care of them, you have to make sure to make them feel loved and cared for, not that they're a burden. So how do you do that in your area of
Yeah, no,
work?
thank you. That's a really great question. And I remember that being a really important message that I wanted to leave behind when I came and spoke with your school. And so I'm glad that resonated with you. I think any helping career, so nursing, doctor, allied health is one, I would say industry where we're helpers, but I really think that kindness belongs anywhere where you're interacting with other people. But I do find in allied health specifically that I have to give a lot of myself. I have to practice empathy. I have to really try to truly understand what somebody's experiencing. They're going to be sharing with me in their own way, but I might not take the information, if I'm bringing my own perspective, I may not take the information in the way that they wanted to share it because I have different perspective. So you really have to be completely dialed in. You have to have a lot of empathy. You have to read the room all the time. You're looking at body language, you're listening to the words they're saying. And sometimes you're really listening for something that activates that gut feeling. So you can dig a little bit deeper. Some of the people that we care for in the healthcare sector are people who are coming to us presenting one thing, but there's a different story that we have to collect. Maybe they're a victim of something, maybe they are being abused or neglected. So we also have an obligation to dig a little bit deeper when we see it. All of those things take a toll on you, and they do. not only that, even if it's not that deep, even if it's just knowing that we're going to be beside people during all of their highest emotions, right? The joy and happiness that happens when they give birth to a baby or when they find out that they no longer have cancer, right? On the flip side, the sheer terror that they face when they find out they do have cancer or they have lost that baby, right? And
Yeah.
so, in having empathy, you're naturally going to start to absorb those emotions, and that really can take a toll on you. In addition to that, you're also going to encounter people who are making decisions for themselves that you know are decisions that are going to harm them, and you have to do your best to give them the information. They have the right to make a decision, and you have to really accept at some point that their decision may cause their death or cause harm to themselves. That can be really challenging as well when you're a caring person and you care about people and you're in this for the right reasons. So I really would say to anybody going into any helping profession, you've got to go in understanding that in order to do that, you're going to have a cost on yourself, on your mind, on your mental health, on your ability to also then go home at the end of the day and be present with your own family and friends. So I think self care is one of the most important things to know going into any profession, but really any kind of health or allied health profession, understanding that, learning how to compartmentalize that I'm now at work and these people, I cannot take their trauma home with me, but I also can't bring my own into them. So if we find ourselves triggered by something that our patient is experiencing, we can't lay down our own trauma on them. We really have to speak up and say, hey, this isn't a good person for me to be working with today. We also, if we're having a real bad time at home, we can't bring that to the patients that we're caring for. We can't put additional burden on them that's us personally. And so it's really a balance, but you really have to go into it knowing that. I wish somebody had told me that when I went into it, because I've had to really learn the hard way. There's a lot of days that I can remember, stories that I can remember of people where I just carried it around with me for a long time. And you will anyway, but you don't want it to be carrying around and actually weighing you down, because that impacts your ability to take care of the next person.
So, considering this is the thing, these are the things you go through every day. I think even, with doctors. So how would you, what's the kind of support that you would like, or how can people back home, how can the community, what can we do to support people in that profession more, or people who want to pursue that? What can we do to help them do their job, better?
Yeah, though that's a really great question. I think I want to make sure I understand though. Or you're wondering how to support people that are in allied health professions as they're going, like as a friend or family member?
Yeah, as a friend or family member.
Yeah, I think just, being engaged enough to, ask them, if I mean, there's privacy laws and we can't share too much information, but certainly to just be able to sometimes talk over something, just to be able to say, man, today was a really rough day. And not, I would say not in the intent of being a rumor monger, like, oh, give me the drama, but really more like, is there anything that, that we can talk about, or is there anything you'd like to do together to kind of decrease some of that kind of, decrease some of that stress that you're feeling. I think things like anything that causes you to move. So sports, dancing, singing, any kind of extracurricular type activities like that. I think people in allied health should really, explore. And if you're currently involved in something, stay involved. But then really the community needs to wrap our arms, those communities, if you're in like a dancing community, wrap your arms around the people in those allied health professions. Even if it's not asking what happened, just more like, hey, do we need to go out and dance it out? Do we need to have something that we do together so that you can relieve some of that pressure that you're under? I think that would be I think that'd be really beneficial.
So one of the other questions as to how in our society, which is probably why you came and spoke about it in the first place, how allied healthcare careers are not necessarily sort of given the attention that they deserve. And sometimes when a student or a young person wants to decide which careers to go for, especially in the medical, spectrum, they really take a look at that. And I was talking about how here in Zimbabwe, for example, it's sort of seen as a last resort, you know, saying, you didn't do so well in your O levels or high school, so you gotta go now for nursing and also like what are the impacts maybe, if you go into the profession with that mentality, to say this is the last option, how does that impact, the delivery in terms of work and because for me it's something that's worrying, considering how much care you guys need to give and how much you need to be present for the job. And so how do we sort of prepare our young people as they're making these career choices to say it's not to help them see the importance, the relevance of these careers. Sorry, that was a bit long.
Yeah, no, that so I'll preface this by saying I'm not a culture expert. I'm not an expert on African history, culture, and all of that. I've spent enough time and know enough people that I think I have a fairly good understanding of some of the traditional practices. And I think, for me, it's why I think if the young people could understand for each of their scenarios, where's the pressure coming from, right? Is it the pressure because the parents and the elders in the family are worried that you are not going to fulfill what is seen as a cultural responsibility of kind of taking care of them, right? That's the reality. Is there fear that that's not going to happen? Because that's a legitimate fear. That's the reality, right? Is it a lack of understanding of what these different careers mean? Is it just the fact that the exposure has only been to doctors and everything else is something else that's unknown? Because the difference between those two things would really change, I think, the way that I would say that a young person could approach it with their family, right? Um, ner- Doctors, nurses, and allied health professionals in different parts of the world, these careers have a different salary range, which would allow you, like in the United States, for example, a nursing salary is sought after, and it would allow a person to practice as a nurse, still, build that house for their family and do all the things to support their family back home and also have a life for themselves here in this country. But my understanding is if you're a nurse in Zimbabwe, it's different. And that could be because maybe a nurse in one area and a nurse in another area aren't doing the same things. I wouldn't know that, right? But if you look at on a global scale and what you guys are doing at USAP is you're looking outside as an option outside of your own country to go and get additional training and maybe have different experiences. So I think the first step is understanding each of these career paths and what does it look like in different areas of the world. Um, I would never condone turning your back on culture. I think it's really important to understand that, if your parents and your elder people in your family are looking to you because that's what their parents did and what their parents did, I think that has to be considered in the career choice. But I think that educating yourself on the different career options out there, um, knowing that you can find something that fulfills you, that makes you happy, that might not be a doctor, it might not be an engineer. And I think, just for a brief overview of allied health careers, if you think about if you really like take healthcare down to like the most basic explanation, everybody in healthcare is like this tribe of people, and they all have a different role. And their role is to take this one person who is having something happening to them, or they're trying to prevent something. And some of the people in this tribe, their job is to physically get this person from where they are to be with a doctor. Some of the people on that tribe, their job is to gather data to give to the doctor. Other people on the tribe, their job is to provide treatments and then give that data to the doctor. At the end of the day, this information and this person, they're all funneled to a doctor. But all of these things have to happen first before it gets to that doctor. And every single one of those roles is absolutely critical in order for that doctor to make their decision. So everybody from the person who's, the paramedics and first responders who might be showing up to a crisis situation and transporting somebody and doing that basic first level of care, to the people in an emergency healthcare setting who are stabilizing a person or not. Maybe the person is not able to be stabilized and they're really working with the family. Um, then you have people that are drawing blood, people that are taking x-rays, people that are providing, intravenous treatment, people who are prescribing and, dispensing medications, people who are doing all kinds of other things. Every one of those roles is imperative for the doctor to be able to get that information. As a matter of fact, in some settings, like when I worked in hospice as well, the doctors never saw the patients. I did. So as a nurse, my assessment was so critical and crucial to the medications and treatments that were being prescribed that my role was probably more important, right? More value. If I wasn't there, the doctor, what would the doctor do? He wouldn't have the information that he needed. So I think, understanding, I think what young people could do and what I really highly recommend is anybody interested in healthcare or just knowing that they're a helper and curious about healthcare to take every single opportunity that comes your way to spend time with people who have these careers, to really ask those questions and understand why did you pick this and what other things were on the table for you so that you can be an educated decision maker, because somebody may have a similar story to you as to why they chose that career, and that could really be helpful for you to understand. And then just again, that constant education, asking the questions of like, what's the salary range, what does it look like to try to find a job, what are the physical requirements. My husband is a radiation therapist, and he chose that job because he really wanted kind of business hours because he knew he wanted to have a family and be home in the evenings. But the flip side of that is his job is very, very demanding on the body. He walks a lot every day, all day. And he knows in order to preserve his own physical health, he may need to find a different job at some point, right? Before retirement age. So, asking those questions of like, what are the physical demands? What are the emotional demands? Um, and I would say to look at it as there's no job that's beneath you. So even a person who is, going around and there's a job where you can follow the emergency room doctors around and scribe for them. They're kind of taking notes for them. It would be easy for, I think, a young person to say, well, I know I don't want to do that. But like, why not talk to that scribe if you have a chance to do so? Why not talk to somebody who's mopping the floors in a hospital or clinic setting? Because they see a lot of things. They know what's really happening there. I think you arm yourself with information. And when you get to a point where you say to yourself, if you get to a point where you say to yourself, I'd like to work in healthcare, but I just don't want to be a doctor for X, Y, and Z reasons. Doesn't matter why. That you're making that decision as an informed decision maker, so that you also can inform your own family of the decisions that you're making. And if if it comes down to those cultural expectations that are really there as part of the culture, to factor that in and to let them know, what it's going to look like to have this career. And if that's the fear, if it's a lack of education, or if there's a fear that you won't be able to, provide those supports, to just dig into that and and kind of find out, how is the career choice that I'm making going to be able to allow me to do all of these things that I want to do? And I think education is what breeds confidence in that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's another reason why the pressure might be coming from that?
Uh, I really wouldn't know because personally, I wouldn't say I'm a helper. I'm not looking to sort of, go into the field of allied healthcare.
Mhm.
But what I do care about is that, whatever one does, they be passionate about that thing, and it's something that gives them joy whilst they're doing. So, what really touched me about what you just said would you should not say there is any job that's beneath me. because at the end of the day, if that job, fulfills you, gives you joy, makes you significant in society also, then it's what really matters. I think that's what, will make life meaningful at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
You nailed it. I think it doesn't matter what the sector is that you're interested in. Life, I'm a middle-aged woman, and I'll tell you that if you don't seek out your own joy and seek out your own fulfillment, nobody's going to come behind you and check in.
yeah,
We each, it can be kind of lonely sometimes because you're just like, nobody's coming, but it's up to us. You really have to be, I would say, values driven and
yeah,
really constantly seeking to find your purpose. And just know that your purpose is going to shift and change as you get older, as your priorities change. And even your values may change. But if you're always checked into your own values and you always are comparing the work that you're doing with your values, your own personal value system, which should be coming right from your experiences that you've had in life. Um, and knowing that self care is an important part of your equation every day. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, you're going to have a purpose filled life. You're going to have joy in your life. And I think really you nailed it that that's what it's about. For me, my purpose comes from the work that I do in the healthcare sector professionally, but then I also feel like I have purposes outside of that. So just also knowing that, I think that's the other thing too, I'll say is also knowing that this is a particular industry that needs help. It never closes, right? So it's easy to go into this field, even as a doctor, and get so absorbed into your work that your work becomes your whole life. And if your joy that you're getting from life and your purpose is all coming from work, then that's really dangerous because you have to keep going to work to getting the purpose and it just keeps going and going. And they'll be happy to have you working all the time because they always need the help. So but yeah, I think passion and joy and purpose, all of those things, no matter what the sector is, you've got to be thinking about that.
yeah.
And one of the things I said to you guys is, the the awareness of the fact that probably, most young people, by nature of the way life works, are going to outlive your parents. And so, what does it mean then if you're making a decision? This is anybody anywhere in the world. If you're making a decision for them, what happens when they're not here anymore? Does that are you still feeling passionate about the work that you're doing? So I think, making sure that we're leaning on our family, but we're also making a decision that we know ourselves is going to give us that fulfillment. And then raising our kids in a way that if we find that our family just doesn't have exposure or knowledge to these different professions, and we don't like the way that feels for ourselves, then as parents, we owe it to our children to get awareness of the different career options so that we aren't perpetuating the pressure if it's coming from that place.
That's so true and so empowering. Thank you. Before I go, um, you know, besides nursing, radiography studies, yeah,
Mhm.
and being a doctor or a surgeon, what are some of the other allied healthcare careers that one can consider? Or even, maybe let's throw this in. I love physics. I'd love something to do with engineering. Are there any, fields in allied healthcare, that have something to do with that?
Yeah, there's a job called a physicist, and it's part of the radiation subset of uh, like radiation. My husband works with physicists and he's a radiation therapist. So in parts of making cancer treatments, I mean, these are people
Yeah,
that specialize in
there's
physics. Yeah.
waves and
Yep.
X-rays and stuff
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
So what are the people can consider, like, in those areas besides me, of course.
Well, I think thinking about healthcare and allied healthcare really is referring to there's like doctors, then there's nurses that are sometimes under the umbrella, sometimes not, and then allied health umbrella. And that really encompasses everybody else who's like kind of physically doing something towards the care of these patients. So it could be different types of therapists, so speech therapy, occupational therapy, music therapy. That's a whole thing. People that love music don't even always know that there's a whole subset called music therapy. And these people literally have dual degrees in therapy, like as in like talk therapy and music. And they're using therapy to manage symptoms of, you know, pain and breathing issues and all of that in hospital and other community-based settings. There's art therapists, there's radiation therapists, x-ray, so technicians, therapists. So technicians would be like working in a lab, working in a pharmacy, working in like imaging, um, as kind of the basic ones. But then if you kind of take a step out of that, and so now we're thinking about the healthcare sector, but we're not talking about the people who are delivering healthcare. You have research people gathering data, you have statisticians who are processing that data, you have people that are writing and publishing papers, so they're just really researching and publishing. You have people that are teaching, and it doesn't, you don't have to be a nurse to teach people classes towards allied health professions, right, including nursing. So you could say, I want to be a teacher to teach people who are pursuing allied health fields. And then maybe you're not a practitioner, but you're honing in on those skills so that you could turn around and teach young people. You could be somebody who's working out in the community, really kind of gathering data, for even, I think about like on a higher level, like maybe you're it's really research. You're researching like community-based, like pandemics and endemics and all of that. So those are people that are not practitioners. They're typically people who are data driven. Maybe they are into like writing and research and all of that. And those professions are incredibly important, in order to, allow us to advance the healthcare sector.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
It's a great honor. Thank you for saving time to speak to us. Um, and take these insights, um, cascades into community, and hopefully more and more people will find the freedom to pursue these things and pursue these ideas. Thank you so much.